Ready to present at conferences but don't know where to start? We're here to guide you through the ins and outs of getting your name on the conference program.
Welcome to the DIESOL podcast, where we focus on developing innovation in English as a second or other language. I'm Brent Warner, professor of ESL, and I'm here with the wonderful Ixchell Reyes, award-winning educator in innovation and professional development. Ixchell, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing okay. All things considered, still kind
Yep.
of, still kind of on it, coming down from TESOL. We talked about it on the last
Yeah.
episode, but it's still like, okay, there was a lot of good stuff going on there.
Yeah. And they already set, I think the call is out for submissions, right?
For 2026,
For
right? So
2026, we just finished.
I
What is
know.
going on?
So if you're thinking about it, that's so we decided to talk about today's topic because of that. It's like, oh, okay, hold on, I got to be on top of it. This is
hmm
a hard thing, very hard for me. I don't know if it's hard for you to like remember when all these dates are coming up and being like, when I start thinking about a conference, I'm usually kind of my brain is, 4 or 5 months ahead of it. But that's way too late, right? And so unless you're really sharp and kind of keeping on top of things, they're kind a lot of conferences are like a year out, right? The
hmm
preparation for everything, including TESOL. So if you want to go to TESOL in 26, you got to start preparing right now.
That's true. Yeah. Of course, I always submit like the week before, and I'm always panicking because you always leave it till later, 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 later. And then June's going to be here soon. And I believe that's when they're asking for submissions.
Yeah, yeah. So we have a little bit of time, I guess. So we have,
hmm
but that time sneaks up on you, and you're like, okay, I'll
hmm
do it a little bit later. So like you're saying, so with all that in mind, we're kind of coming back to Michelle, if you can believe it, 2019, episode 3,
2019.
100 and 116 episodes back, we talked about going to conferences, how to get the most out of conferences, a little bit about how to apply. I think I don't totally remember. It's been a long time, but the conversation was we got a lot of new professionals in the field. We got a lot of awesome teachers doing fun
hmm
stuff. And so, but a lot of them also feel, I don't know if people came up to you during the conference, they started saying like things like, oh, it's so cool that like, how do you present it? It's like it
hmm
feels like a different world for some people. Like
Yeah.
it's like a pseudo, I don't want to say it in the wrong way, but it's like kind of like, there's like a little celebrity feeling of
Yeah, I
like
was gonna
going,
say that people kept saying, "You guys are rock stars. You guys are awesome." And it's like, uh, I'm just
yeah,
sharing what I love to talk
yeah,
about,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
want to encourage others.
Well, and I think part of that is trying to convince people, and not convince is the right word, but we're all regular people, right? We're all normal
hmm
people, and part of the joy of our job is
Not
sharing with each
regular. I'm
other.
extra weird.
True, fair enough. All right. Um, we are all human beings in this world for the most part. And so just trying to encourage people to say like, hey, we can all do this thing, right? And so we wanted to share a little bit out with everybody who's kind of thinking, hey, maybe next year I could be a presenter, right? Or
hmm
maybe, or how do I kind of look into these ideas, or what do I need to know for it? And so we're going to share a little bit just about that, is like, how do you prepare? How do you submit? All of those kinds of things. So
All
if,
right,
if you're
let's do it.
ready, okay.
All right. Well, first of all, I think everyone needs to remember that you definitely have good ideas. The
Mm,
thing that I hear all the time is, well, I just don't know what I would share. Well, I just don't have anything to share. Well, I don't know if anyone would be interested in what I want to talk about.
mhm.
And the reality is sometimes I feel that way too.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone's covered everything already. What do I have to share? But we forget that there are new teachers and new people coming into this field all the time. And there
Mhm.
are teachers who have never attended who are going to benefit for the first time from anything you have to share. So, I always have this dream of having my teacher trainees present with me because that
Mhm.
would be amazing. And I constantly tell them, think about this. You have this great idea. You have a wonderful gift for doing this. And I usually get, well, I don't think I have anything good to share, or I don't
Mhm.
think I'm good enough to share. It's like, no, this is exactly why we have to do it because you do. So
Yeah.
remind yourself of that if you are one of those people who has attended conferences but hasn't thought about presenting. You absolutely have good ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's
100%.
the place to start.
That's for sure. Yeah. You are good enough for sure. And you got great ideas. Your students appreciate you in the classroom, and so therefore you can just transfer that over to the presentation side too. Wonderful. Okay, so my first one here is, we look at, TESOL or ISTE or any of these big, organizations that are doing these kind of massive ones, right? And I could totally understand where those feel intimidating, and
Mm-hmm.
perhaps, you might be in a situation. I remember, Michelle, when we were at USC, kind of these types of proposals were going around, and there's so many teachers in there, and everyone's talking about, oh, I presented, oh, I didn't make it in, oh, I did make it in, right? And it almost felt like I think it was good at that school because people were supportive of each other. If they didn't get in, they're
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, cool, you made it in, right? That kind of thing. But it
Mm-hmm.
could also be the other way around, where it's like cutthroat competition feeling, or like how
Mm-hmm.
hard is it. But what I would say is, if you're not sure, or if you haven't presented before, you can get your feet wet by presenting and, practicing really at local workshops. So almost all of these big organizations have smaller local ones. We've talked about them all quite a bit on this show. So if we're looking at TESOL, for example, and you're in California, you could look at TESOL, but even more local than that, you could do like, in my Orange County affiliate, or the Los Angeles affiliate, or whichever one it is, right? And so the more you kind of niche down to presentation opportunities at the closer to you scale, the more likely it is that you're going to be able to get in and start getting some presentation skills going with everything. So I highly recommend trying, and I still do present at local conferences all the time. Like, it's kind of, I don't know. It's almost like the comedian going to the local clubs and like keep, practicing their lines and seeing what gets laughs and what doesn't, and then before
Mm-hmm.
they go on their big tour, it's kind of the same thing. Is like, okay, I think maybe want to present on this. Let's see how it goes, and then you kind of check on
It's
yourself.
just fine tuning because I did
Yeah.
the same thing. A lot of the topics I pitch are something that I've already presented to a smaller audience, and then I
Mm-hmm.
get a feel for like, oh, okay, I didn't think about that. Why don't I add this to my final version? And so that way, it's not something that you're diving in, you know, into the cold water.
Mm-hmm.
That you have something that you started from already, and it's just fine tuning, like the final presentation, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect.
Okay, so another way to get ready is to read the rubric. Many people maybe don't remember that you could actually, you have to address what's in the rubric.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I noticed in the last year, of course, with, having AI as one of our tools now, is a lot of conferences have a little box that asks you if you used AI for your submission.
Mm.
And there may be something that says, because we recognize AI as a tool, but we want to stay as authentic as we can. So we want you to use your own writing, which is fair, I believe.
Yeah.
And but I think that a useful something useful to do is to upload once you've written your proposal, upload the rubric into AI and ask AI to check to see what points you can strengthen and whether you met all the points in the rubric. I did that, and it gave me areas where I needed to strengthen what I had written.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is very, very useful, especially when you're supposed to have, or it's nice to have a peer review your submission, but your peers are just as busy, right? And
Right.
so oftentimes if you're waiting till the last month, or if you don't have enough time to give it to a peer to review, this is an excellent way to get some feedback. And I think that that's absolutely helpful. You could also, if possible, search for a program for the previous year and download the PDF so you can see the descriptions. That way, it gives you an idea of what people who got accepted, what it sounds like in writing.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you have an idea of what the conference looks for. Of course, you have to keep in mind that it's like a year old, perhaps, if it's an annual conference. So the interest in the topics may have changed, but the content and the way that it's written is relevant.
Yeah. And I want to go back to the AI bit that you were sharing there just for a minute here because it's not again, we always have to have these AI conversations, and it's like what's authentic, what's real, right? But the other thing is
Mm.
that like I think for you and me on this last one too, it also helps us fine tune and say like for our actual presentation, right? It's not just about getting the acceptance, it's about going, oh, okay, like I can then make sure that I'm talking about XYZ, right? Or I can also
Mhm.
update, some of my, this information is going to be relevant for people to understand contextually when I'm presenting what's going on. And so I just want to encourage people to think of that. Again, AI is such a good reflection tool because, it's giving you advice, it's giving you ideas and things to think about that you might not have considered, just on your own. And so really take a look at that as a possibility.
Mhm.
Okay. So next, this one's a little kind of sillier and maybe a little bit more fun, but make a punchy title. There are so many just boring, overly academic, right? Conference titles that are like, what is that, right? You know, a broad case study on the application of wonderment in such and such a setting. And it's like, oh, okay, okay, like who is this going to apply to, right? And
Mhm.
so I think that so many especially like professor types, right, get into like, oh, okay, this is an academic conference and therefore I must be academic and that's the appropriate thing to do. And it's like, well, everybody who's coming here are teachers, right? They're classroom teachers. They want to, for the most part, they really want to kind of apply something to their classroom. And so hit that punchiness, right? You got to kind of mark it a little bit, really get it clear about what your presentation's about just in the title. Because the other thing is so many of these conferences, um, the way that they're put together online, the only thing you can really see about the presentation is the title, right? So
Right.
I had complained about this before, but TESOL uses Cvent, which is a terrible, terrible platform. And I can't blame TESOL because a lot of a lot of these organizations use Cvent. But one of the things I hate about it is that it doesn't tell you who the presenter is or where that
Mhm.
presenter is from or what their setting is. So it's really just the title. And then you have to like click into it to go and see, okay, is this something that I want to see? And so really you are selling the book by the cover, right? And so if you have a good title, if you have something that's going to capture people's attention, they might want to look into it a little bit more. They might want to find out. So, just like we tell our own students on writing their essays, spend time on that title. Make sure that it's gonna capture the attention. It does matter.
Yeah, it matters. And particularly, I want to mention that at the last conference at TESOL, there were so many sessions on AI
Mm,
that I just couldn't distinguish what would have been something I'm interested in because they all sort of blended and sounded the same to me.
yeah.
So
Using
only the
AI
ones
in the
that's,
classroom.
yeah,
Classroom
using
use of
AI for
AI.
language learners.
AI for my students. AI, it's like, okay, like I mean,
But
yeah, don't get me wrong, like
yeah, we're,
good start with
mhm,
if the idea was that like, 2 years ago, if you had said that, you probably,
yeah,
you would have been the only one
everyone, the
presenting
only
on it,
one.
right?
Yeah.
And so, but now it's literally it was half the conference, and
Hmm.
so how do you distinguish that for sure?
Yeah. And which one's helpful for me? So that kind of ties into the next one,
Mm,
which is know your why. Why are you submitting? Why are you presenting? What is it that you're presenting? Why that thing? Is it to help other teachers? Is it because your school will pay you to go if you present? Is it because your program or your professor is asking you to present the research as part of your requirements?
hmm
I mean, is it going to be truly helpful for someone? What I always think when I start writing is this is what I want to write up. This is what I want to present. But so what? The teachers are going to leave with saying, so what do I do with this now? So what can I do with this now? So
hmm
what part of this will I be able to apply now? So if you're thinking about your topic or the thing you want that you're passionate about, what you want to share, and you're asking yourself those questions, and you have to be able to answer. You have to be able to answer with, well, after attending this session, you will know one more strategy to help unmotivated students learn to write a thesis statements, or
Mm-hmm.
after attending my presentation, you will have three new ways to help students apply idiom usage in a more natural way. So you've got to know why. If you cannot answer that question, it doesn't mean leave that topic and abandon it. It just means you've got to leave it alone for a while and think about the answer. Write it out. You'll come back to it, because if you're doing this in the classroom and it's successful, there is a why and there
For
is a
sure.
so what.
Yes.
So
So
know
figure it
your
out.
why.
Fi- Figure out why you're doing it. This is kind of making me think over the last, couple of years, I've gone to several conferences that I guess purport to be more academically focused or something like that, Ishel, and I saw so many of these things. It's like, I think I've kind of uh, bemoaned this a little bit in the past, but it's this idea of like, okay, well, I did this tiny little sample survey with my students, and I'm turning that into like a little research project with like 6 or 7 people total as my subjects, and then I'm turning that into a presentation. And to me, that's like one of these things where it's like, well, where's the value in that? Like, is that actual? It's like to me that seems to me like just playing the system of university. It's like university requires you to publish and present
Mm-hmm.
somewhat regularly, and so then it's like you're not really providing value. And sorry, I want to be careful about this. You're not necessarily providing value by giving a tiny sample size like introduction concept to something where it's like, well, are we doing a real study out of this or not? Like, is this worth people's 1 hour of time that they're gonna get out of that they're gonna have to take out of the other sessions that are being presented
Mm-hmm.
versus your one, right? Like to me, one of the questions I always want to ask is like, when people walk out of there, are they going to say like, there was something really valuable from that for me, right? And so I hope so, in my own presentations. I hope that it's not just like a bunch of, you know, mm, patting ourselves on the back at these presentations, but
Mm-hmm.
I will warn that that can be a thing, and so you want to be careful that you're really providing value to whoever is going to go to
Mm-hmm.
your session, and that it's more, I don't know, for me I guess I like to see like that it's a selfless share rather than like a some sort of personal need that you have to fill some requirement to get it done.
Yeah, and I'm just going to throw in that people will sense right through that. They will know. So the worst thing I've seen it happen is when people realize someone's just spitting out their research and people start walking out in the middle of the presentation, and you end
Hmm.
up with like one or two attendees.
Yeah.
And that is really, and they're staying there just because it's too late to go to another session, or because they're getting credit to attend a session, right? And
Hmm.
again, I am interested in research. I definitely want to attend research sessions,
Yeah.
but I also want to know how that research, the end part of the your research article, where the implications, where they go, that start with that,
Yeah,
start with
yeah, yeah.
that, because that's going to draw your attention to how you can apply it and why it's important.
Yes, yes. And I will say recently I went to a session where this teacher did actually do it that way. And so he
Mm-hmm.
said he actually had a fairly small, I think he was doing like pronunciation with AI type
Mm-hmm.
of thing, right? And he's like, I have a very small sample size from my own students, but these are the things that is starting to open up the conversations for me
Mm-hmm.
about, okay, then here's what's going on with the conversation inside of it, and then it makes sense, and became a valuable presentation, even though it was only a small sample to start with, because it's really about, in that case, it was about getting people kickstarted and going like, okay, this is what I can start thinking about, this is what I can start pursuing, etc.
Yeah, we don't like death by PowerPoint, and we also don't like death by research, research
Yeah.
spitting out, or whatever that is, spitting out all
Well,
of the.
yeah. Okay. So in the future, Michelle, you and I already do have a plan to do another like how to put on a good
Yeah,
presentation conversation because
we'll talk about that. Hmm.
it needs to be talked about a little bit more. So not today, but pay attention. hit that subscribe button. We'll talk about it later. Okay. My next one here is you kind of mentioned this, you shall already. It's a
Mm,
variation of this, but reviewing your competition. So,
mm-hmm,
and not to think of them as competition, but just like again, looking at someone's presentation that you went to, and then kind of seeing, okay, what did it actually say inside of their session description, and versus when you went to it, like what did it look like? You can sometimes reach out to presenters and say, hey, I want to learn how to present more. Would you be willing to share your submission proposal? Because the other thing I think that many new people don't recognize is that a submission proposal is quite a bit longer than
mm-hmm.
just the
And
the
the abstract.
blurb, the
Yeah.
abstract blurb that comes up. So you get that abstract. That's what they put into their into this
Catalog
the
or,
catalog, right? So when you go look on Cvent or on Sketch or whatever, that write up is there. But when you're actually submitting, you're writing quite a long, bit of information, all of the things about you, your setting, how this is going to help people, etc. And so a lot of teachers save that all when they submit, so they kind of like I
mm-hmm.
do. I keep a document, and for the most part, and I kind of have everything saved. And so then so if I'm going to present this again, I'll use basically the same information. And so some people might be willing to share that with you and going, "Yeah, okay, so now you can see what's on the back end. Now, so if you'd already seen their presentation, you can say, hey, would you be willing to share that with me so I can see what's going on the back end and how you got accepted? So that might be a way to help you see a little bit of, how the sausage is made, I guess.
All right. The next thing to do is to keep an eye out for extensions, deadline extensions. And that's because usually there's the first deadline. And then after some time, they extend the deadline to get other submissions in. That means they may not have received enough submissions or enough quality submissions. And I
Hmm.
think this is always helpful. It's usually about another week. They give you about another week, which is for me, since I wait till the last minute, as you shouldn't do. But keep an eye out for extensions.
Yeah, yeah, they can. That's also a good hint that they really do need something a little better than what
Mm-hmm.
they've been getting, or a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would almost, when you see those extension ones, it's a really good opportunity to submit because
Mm-hmm.
to me, it feels way more likely that you'll get accepted than just the first one where it's like, oh, whatever percent only makes it in, and then they're like, oh, we're doing extensions. You're like, oh, okay, they must be wanting something, so that could be a good chance for sure.
And one of the things that I often do when I get that extension or when the deadline's coming up is I always talk to someone and say, "Hey, here's my idea. Listen to my idea and see what do you think." And I talk it out, not for
Mm,
their benefit, but because then I'm internalizing what I kind of want to put down on paper. And I do this every single time because sometimes my ideas just live and swim in my head. But if I don't talk about it and I then don't sit down and write about it, I'll sit down and the ideas don't come.
mm,
So it's really good to around that time. Don't need to write anything and give it to someone. Just talk about it with one of your colleagues.
cool. Yeah. All right, so I think we're gonna wrap with this last one, just which is just kind of keeping up on top of conference proposal deadlines. So, you shall, like we said before,
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard, right? It's like, oh, okay, wait a second. When is this one gonna be due? Oh, I missed the deadline for that one. I had no idea it was at this time. And so you can, of course, keep an eye out by searching on websites, or you can sign up for the mailing list of the organizations that you want to go to and whatever else it is. But there's not a lot of great. There have been in the past, and people have kind of run their own calendars for a little while. At the moment, there's a teacher named Todd Rademacher, I think is his name. He's a pretty well known teacher. Anyways, he has just a mailing list, and I'll provide a link in the show notes where he sends out about once a month, and he's like, oh, here's 10 or 15 conference proposal deadlines that are coming up. You might want to check those out and see what they're about. And so he's not necessarily TESOL specific, although TESOL did come up on his mailing list the last month. And so so if you have a couple of different ways to kind of keep on top of things, you might also just tell people, hey, let me know if there are presentations, submissions coming up, because sometimes your colleagues know about things and you're just like, oh, I had no idea it was going, and it gets skipped. So create some ways to be aware, because again, many of them are quite far in the distance, and kind of further than you're prepared to start thinking about it. Especially one of the problems for me is like, I'm like, oh, well, I'm not ready to prepare for 2026. Like, I don't know what AI is going to look like at that time. And it's a real struggle, right? Or it's
Yeah.
like, if we're talking about AI or how the world's going to look at that time, and it's like, okay, I'm going to come up with an idea at least, and hopefully like that'll be roughly the area that I want to talk in. And you might need to fine tune a little bit later, but keep an eye out on those dates because they do sneak by.
All right. Please check us out on YouTube, add us on Instagram or any other platform. And
And we're there, maybe.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we're there.
Yeah.
And thank you to all. We've got suddenly, I think after TESOL, we got a bunch of new subscribers. So thank you for following us and listening to our show.
Yeah.
And now it is time for our fun finds.
All right.
So I have the Govee Hexa light panels. I'm a sucker for LEDs, and I received a gift, which was the Govee hexagon light panels. I used to have Hue light panels, but those are pricier
Very pricey.
and a lot more expensive to replace or to add on to if you're creating something on your wall. But these are cheaper, customizable, and they still work with all of your like smart home appliances. So
Mm.
Alexa, um, what is it? The Google, what's the other one?
Home kit or
Google,
whatever,
yeah,
Apple Home
something like
Kit. Yeah.
that. But they're
Mm.
all they're all compatible. So
Cool.
if you want to put something colorful on your wall, I recommend those.
Nice. Okay. I'm going to go with something, I'm gonna go with these ultra thin webcam cover slides. There's lots of these things.
Oh yes,
I found these ones. I think on, I don't know, Amazon or something like that. There's like $3 for three of them,
I
but
have
these
panda ones.
you have Panda ones. So they have all these web cover things, you put a sticker over your webcam and that's fine, right? But this one is kind of nice just because it's it really is ultra thin, so
Hmm.
my MacBook
Like
still
for a
folds
MacBook,
completely
yeah.
flat. Yeah, that's the hard part is like, okay, are you going to find something that's actually going to fold in? But it totally does fold down flat. It doesn't leave any gaps in the seal for anything, and then you can actually slide. It's a little tiny piece of plastic, and it has a little slider, so it can cover up the camera or not cover it up. I have always had something physical covering my camera in addition to the digital thing. So we might maybe trust the cameras not to turn on by themselves, or AI not to sneak into your system and turn on the camera and see what's going on. Maybe you don't trust that. If you don't trust that, some sort of little actual physical block to the camera cannot be defeated by AI. So, I don't know. I think that this is a worthwhile purchase. They're very non-obtrusive. They're out of the way. They don't stand out on your computer when you're using them. So, really quite useful.
All right. For the show notes and other episodes, check out diesel.org/119 for episode 119. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, and
Some other places.
some other places at Diesel Pod.
Yeah, you can find me on some other places too at Brent G. Warner.
And me at Ixy_Pixie. That's IXY_PIXY.
Awesome. Thanks so
Thank
much,
you for
everybody.
listening.
Take care. Bye.